Hurricane Ivan now just hours from making land as big as Francis and as strong as Charlie and bearing down on Mobile, Alabama. Forecasters say Ivan is showing no signs of weakening. It is the most dangerous storm Mobile has faced in 25 years, maybe longer. Ivan's winds and the resulting waves are causing great concern tonight, all hoping that Mobile's seawalls will be able to handle the storm surge that is sure to follow. Now, as if 135-mile-an-hour winds, torrential rain, and massive waves were not enough, hurricanes also routinely spin off powerful tornadoes. And there are reports a tornado or two touched down in Georgia and Florida's Panhandle, leaving a trail of death and destruction. CNN's David Mattingly joining us live from Panama City, where a twister was reported earlier. David, the latest from you.
Well, Miles, we're about 150 miles from Mobile Bay, but you can see we're obviously seeing the effects of this storm already with this flooded beach. Earlier today, though, people here started to feel just a little sense of relief as they watched that storm move off to the west. But now, with that band of showers, that band of severe weather that came through, dropping those tornadoes, they're wondering if they're going to make it through this storm okay.
The winds were only gusting in Panama City Beach when a late afternoon band of violent weather turned deadly. 2 people were killed after tornadoes touched down and produced extensive damage in different areas of Bay County.
Probably the worst thing that has occurred as a result of the storm, at least on the beach. The north end of the county, we have had a fatality at the north end of the county as a result, a confirmed fatality as a result of a tornado. We have had some extensive damage off the beach in the residential area on the east side of the bridge. We expect this to be the beginning of a long night.
Both hurricane and tornado warnings had been in effect, but just the threat of dangerous conditions wasn't enough to stop local residents from venturing out. Just hours before the first killer tornado, 6 members of the O'Brien family thought it was a good time to hit the beach.
When you live here and there's tourists everywhere all the time, it's kind of nice.
It is.
Have the beach quiet.
With Ivan apparently steering to the west, carloads of sightseers lined the road near local piers to take in the thundering surf. At Dusty's Oyster Bar, longtime residents fighting boredom were treated to a happy hour that lasted all day.
We were coming down, just to bunker up and get everything ready, for the winds and everything else. And started getting phone calls. And as you can see behind us, most of these people are all local people. And they said, we need a place to go.
Well, where they need to go right now, if they haven't already, is home. A curfew is in effect and will be in effect until tomorrow morning. And while you look at this flooded beach and these floodwaters that are coming in here right now, this tidal surge, if the winds pick up to 55 miles an hour, all 3 bridges linking this beach area to the mainland will be closed. And if you're on this beach, you'll have to stay here for the duration, according to the local officials. Miles?
David, have you seen anybody out there besides the crew?
Since the tornadoes went through, you've not seen anybody on the streets. There is a curfew in effect, and everybody's paying attention to that. They're sitting at home right now wondering what they're going to see in the morning when they come out to look at this beach, because this is where this town makes its money, this white sand beach. There's supposed to be about 300 yards of it behind me, but you can see right now it's already flooded. They're seeing a lot more storm surge already than they had expected to, so they're keeping their fingers crossed and hoping that their beach will survive the night.
Storms can really do a number on those beaches. Can you tell right now, one way or another, whether the sand is being washed out, or is it too early to tell for sure?
It feels like it's being washed out from under me right now. The water keeps getting a little bit deeper by the hour. We haven't seen high tide here yet. So far, the wind has been coming off of the land area, so it's been knocking the waves down. That's going to change later when the circulation comes around this way. And of course, we haven't seen high tide, so the worst is definitely yet to come. And the winds are just now picking up here, so we haven't seen the worst of this storm by far yet.
David Mattingly is in Panama City, Florida. We will be checking back with him all throughout the night as well. When Hurricane Ivan finally dissipates, hard to imagine that right now, but it will eventually. Thousands of people will then need help rebuilding their lives, of course, and they will need that help for quite a long time. It is a tough road ahead coming back from this kind of disaster. For some insights, we turn again to Yolanda Ulrich in Miami. She survived Hurricane Andrew 12 years ago. Wasn't easy. A month ago during Hurricane Charlie, she offered us some very good advice. It was so good we asked her back tonight to share some more with us. Thanks again for being with us, Yolanda.
Thank you for asking me, Miles. I'm happy to be here.
Well, what has it been like seeing these three storms, having lived through Andrew? Is it sort of a flashback after a flashback after a flashback?
Absolutely. In fact, here in the studio watching your filming tonight, it was very unsettling. I've got to tell you, we all become NIMBYs, I guess you would say, not in my backyard, and that's a rotten thing to say, but that's the truth. A couple of days ago, when we started seriously tracking Ivan here in South Dade County, a couple of the computer models had that monster going right up US 1. And frankly, a lot of us had more than one bad moment. It frightened us. It scared me to death. Not so much the thought that I was going to actually die in a hurricane. I know I'm going to die, but somehow I don't think I'm going to die in a storm. But the thought of the year or so after, I really, at this point, I'm not sure that I could do it again.
And when you talk to people who've endured the same thing, do they give you sort of the same response? They sort of, this was a once-in-a-lifetime thing coming back from a storm like this?
Well, you know, that's what we've been promised. That's what we've been told. This only happens once in a lifetime. But, you know, I have several close friends who endured 26, 35, 38, all of the storms in the 40s and the 50s. So I'm not so sure that this is a once-in-a-lifetime. And I tell you, I'm not willing to take a chance. I listened to some of the people that your reporters have interviewed, folks who are going to stay in their homes and ride it out and hunker down, and they've got more guts than I do.
Did you ride the storm out, Andrew, in your home?
Yes, I did. I had my children and a young granddaughter with me. Very frankly, we did not think we were going to get the storm until just a few hours before. We were under the impression that it was going to go to either North Broward or Palm Beach County, which would have put us on the southern part of the storm, and therefore, all things being equal, the lesser dangerous side of the storm. As it turned out, we were actually 14 miles from north of the eye, which passed over Homestead, which is where I actually work.
What's the best advice you can give folks tonight? I'm not talking about folks necessarily in the path of Ivan, as I'm talking about the folks who are contending with the cleanup of Charlie and Francis as well.
Well, the best advice I can tell you is, or tell them, is to be patient. We, in my neighborhood, and I'm not trying to play can you top this, but we were without power for probably a couple of months. And then even after power was restored to our neighborhood, we couldn't have it in our house. Be patient. The electricity will come back. You won't have to boil the water forever. The neighborhood is going to get cleaned up. We're very fortunate in South Florida in that we do live in a tropical paradise. Give us a couple of years and our canopy will be back. Our plants and our trees will be back. And the building will take place. What disturbs me is that I'm wondering, because of Charlie and then Francis, and who knows what's left of the season, we have until the end of November actually, I'm wondering about the time it's going to take to rebuild, getting the materials necessary to rebuild. That's going to be a problem, I think.
That was a problem in the wake of Andrew, right? Just getting contractors with enough plywood to do the job.
It was. You know, thinking back, we all learned valuable lessons, and hopefully we won't have to reapply those lessons. But if we do, I'm not so sure that I would rush into rebuilding right away, because we were all working. There were, 250,000 people down there trying to find the same contractor to rebuild their house. And I think that possibly next time, if God forbid there is a next time, I think that I would probably wait a while before trying to rush into rebuilding. My husband and I had to go to out of the county actually to buy light fixtures, and just as a simple thing. I know it doesn't sound important right now.
No, but in the grand scheme of things, that kind of sums it up. Everything becomes difficult. Tell me a final thought here. Do you recall the first emotions you felt on that morning after when you realized the scope of the damage?
I didn't realize the scope of the damage. That was just it. At first I thought it was my house. And then I thought, well, it was my street. And after I finally made my way down to Homestead, I realized it was going to be pretty tough. But it took me about 2 weeks and a ride in an Army helicopter when I actually saw the damage. And I knew that this wasn't going to go away overnight. And so frankly, I'm afraid I was naive. I thought, gee, this happened to me, and isn't that awful? I didn't realize for a couple of weeks. And all I can say is God bless those people, and for them to be patient and hopefully just do what they're told and just stay the course. That's all I can say.
A little bit of work, a little bit of patience, paradise won't necessarily be lost. Yolanda Ulrich from Miami, thanks again for your advice.
Thank you, Miles.
We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Not everyone has heeded the warnings to get out of Ivan's way, of course. Some prefer to stay right where they are and ride the storm out at home, as Yolanda told you about. Others are too ill or too frail to move. And of course, now the best advice is to stay put in many places. In New Orleans, which dodged the bullet earlier when Ivan shifted course a bit, those who didn't want to head north had another option, heading up, literally, as in straight up. It's called vertical evacuation. CNN's John Zarrella joining us now live from New Orleans to explain what this is all about. Hello, John.
Miles, I tell you, what a difference a few miles makes. Down east here in eastern Louisiana, there's reports of heavy rain and some flooding. And, of course, 50, 75 miles east of us, torrential rains and terrible winds. And here on Decatur Street, the corner of Decatur and St. Anne's, across the street, the famous Café du Monde, everything is absolutely deserted. The tourists are in their hotels. People evacuated yesterday, and those that didn't did what you just said. They vertically evacuated because folks here, knowing what can happen to New Orleans, which is below sea level, if a big one hits, they took no chances.
With their 3 dogs, sisters Randy and Armide de la Guéronnière took the advice of local officials. They checked into a hotel and got to higher ground.
To be in something really strong. These buildings have been here for 100 years, I imagine, or, close to, and they're a lot more secure than any of our homes.
The Astor Hotel was packed with New Orleans residents who didn't evacuate the city, but chose instead to vertically evacuate. In this below sea level city, massive flooding from a major hurricane, 10 to 15 feet of it everywhere, stirs even greater fear than wind. Throughout the famed French Quarter, sandbags line storefronts. Plywood covers windows, and trucks were still unloading more of it. Taking it all in, a group of conventioners from the National Safety Council. Thousands of them are here and stuck. With the airlines shut down, there's no way for them to get out.
It looks like the people that are at the hotel are competent and they're kind of on top of things. And we've gone to the store and we've gotten our water and we've gotten some soup and things like that. So we should be okay for a couple days.
And that's all it may be, just a couple days. As Ivan turned, it lessened the risk. Yet this city, known as the Big Easy, has for the past few days been anything but.
Now, a few hours ago, we were down up on Lake Pontchartrain, went all the way up Canal Street to the lake, and the water was pouring in along the lake, over the lakefront, but right up against the levee, that hurricane protection levee that surrounds the city, which is designed not to be overtopped unless a hurricane is a 3, 4, or 5, which, of course, we are not getting here, anything like that tonight. Just a little bit of wind, just a little bit of a drizzle. It is amazing, Miles, the difference that just a few miles makes. And, listening to your guest a few minutes ago certainly brought back memories for me from Hurricane Andrew. And one of the things when she was talking about the houses and everything being destroyed, after Andrew, there wasn't a leaf on a tree, a branch on a tree. There wasn't houses. People could not find their homes when they went back because there were no markers left. People didn't even know what street they were on. It was horrible. And, you know, building construction in Florida, all over Florida, is considerably and always was considerably better than in many of these coastal areas that are going to be impacted tonight. So certainly we could be seeing some terrible, terrible destruction as day breaks tomorrow. Miles?
Well, these storms do have a way of underscoring the point that not every builder builds to code. Let's talk for just a moment about the worst case scenario which has been avoided in New Orleans, and that is the fact that this is a city largely below sea level. While it does have a system of levees and dikes to keep the water out, there's been concern over the years, time and time again, about the possibility of a direct hit there. Did you talk to city officials much about that today?
Horrible, horrible fears here of a direct hit, and that's why they evacuated people. That's why we saw the massive traffic jams, people leaving the city yesterday, because you've got Lake Pontchartrain, you've got the Gulf of Mexico, and the Mississippi River, the city below sea level, surrounded on all three sides. If a major, and recent studies they've just done, they thought they would be safe up to a high category, to a mid-category 3. Now they're not so sure. They think that if a major hurricane hits at just the right angle, that the levees might well be overtopped in a high 3. Certainly a storm like Ivan. And where I'm standing here, Jackson Square is just behind me over here. You could see right here in the French Quarter some 15 feet of water. So, and that would be covering the entire city. Second-story homes would be underwater.